have I made a joke about Danica Patrick? Danica Patrick, I go, holy smokes. I said, she's good looking. Now all the NASCAR drivers are going to have windshield wipers on the inside of the car. I think another one was about pole setter, but I can't remember how it went.
On the pole. Danica's on the pole again.
You were the grand marshal and I was also doing something. We were the two big guests at the big race there in Louisiana, I think it was. You went up, did your deal, and you said a couple of jokes about me, and then I went up and did my deal, did a couple of Danica Patrick jokes. I come across an article from that thing, and it was some gossip column in Hollywood, and it said, could there be a new romance in the making? And it said the chemistry between Danica Patrick and Larry the Cable Guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember this article. I showed my wife and we just got to laughing about it.
This podcast exists because I love talking to people and I love going deep. The purpose is to plant seeds of inspiration. We enter a space of vulnerability and relatability. And what you realize is that we are so much more alike than we are different. To quote Ram Dass, we're all just walking each other home. And this show is just one step. I'm Danica Patrick and I'm pretty intense.
Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. Today on the show is Dan Whitney. And you're going to go, wait a second, who's that? And then I'm going to say, Larry the Cable Guy. And you're going to go, oh, I know who that is. Well, his real name is Dan. So the beginning of the conversation was all about Dan and Larry and how when Larry was born and the relationship with Larry and who Dan is. But you know, the beginning was so much about it was just Dan. And my goodness, he is a really, really, really compassionate guy. He's a really kind guy. Of course, he's funny, but he's also really smart and thoughtful. And I just loved the first half of this conversation was such a different vibe than I feel like I've really seen and heard out of him. And I just loved it. He's obviously an extremely successful comedian. He was on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour back in the early 2000s with other famous names. He has tons of comedy albums that have come out and been successful. And I later on in the episode joked about all the things that he sells on his website. I mean, it's everything from like knives to underwear and Bloody Larry mix and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, do you have a line in the sand? Like, I'm not going to sell this. But what it skipped to really quick was that all of the things that he sells on his website go to the Get Her Done Foundation. And they've donated over $7 million so far to charities from all of those sales from the things that he sells on the website. So what an amazing guy, super cool, super funny, super thoughtful, really smart. And I think you're going to fall in love with Dan today. And you probably already love Larry, but you're going to really meet Dan today. And he's a wonderful human. And of course, if you love his Larry character and all of the funny things that he does for his job, he's touring, which I'm sure that we can all say, thank God for touring, whether it's music or comedy or anything. Let's get out there and support these people who've been, whose lives depend on doing that. And now maybe Larry/Dan's doesn't, but still, we love to see him out doing his thing. Enjoy the episode.
You can do Larry the Cable Guy, but we're friends. So Dan, the rest of the time. I mean, that's the crazy thing because people call me just Larry. I've been Larry since 1993. So all my friends call me Dan. People that think they know me call me Danny. For some reason, I don't know. It's weird, but I've been Larry the Cable Guy. They call me even when I do like I'm doing this big free show down here at the Lead Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. So they do this whole thing and they call me Larry the Cable Guy. They never once call me by my real name. It's like, why are people calling me? Obviously, it's a character. I mean, how, you know what I mean? So stupid, but no.
People don't know that though. People don't know that. I didn't really even know that. Like, I just thought it was Larry and somehow you became the Cable Guy.
That's how good of an actor.
Guy. I mean, these are really like, these are logical questions in my head.
That's how good of an actor I am.
That's right. Right.
They always tell me that, like, my movies, like, I'm such a bad actor, and critics always hammer me. He's acting, you can't act. Well, evidently I act pretty good, because you actually think I am this, like, cable guy that, like, I mean, come on. I mean, people are complete morons. Have we started the interview?
Of course. We started the interview from the point in time where you were looking at it really close. I soft start. I put people off a little bit, but I kind of soft start. And mostly it's because I like people to feel comfortable. And I know that you can be very uptight. So I wanted to really, like, roll into this easily.
Yeah, I'm real difficult. No, Dan's fine. I mean, you know, it's really crazy because I've been doing this now. I hit nationally with Larry the Cable Guy doing my character in like 1997, 98, you know, doing clubs everywhere. And then when I hit the Blue Collar Tour, then it was everywhere. Yeah. But I've been doing this literally. So that's like 21 years just after Blue Collar started, 22 years. And then like 5 years before that on radio. But it's like, I've done hundreds of interviews. I did 60 Minutes interview. I'm out of character. I'm one of the only stand-up comedians ever featured on 60 Minutes. And I did it completely out of character. I've done so many interviews out of character, and people, I don't, you know, and it's not my fans. It's people that just like, which are very few, obviously, because I got great fan base. Yeah. But they, you know, people that don't like me, particularly like critics, you know how critics are, that they don't like it, they don't like it. And they have this image of you, and they just keep putting out this fake, you know, they've never been to my shows. I don't know. It's crazy. So it's like, my fans know for the most part that it's a character. Now, when I first started, some of them might not have. But as I went along and I did interviews and so forth and so on, at some point, I think some of them got to the point, wait a second, this is so outrageous. This has got to be fake, right? This is so outrageous. I think the thing that confuses some people is I'm not like, I'm a real country kid. You know, I grew up in a town of 1,200 in the southeast corner of Nebraska. I grew up raising hogs. My goal in life was to be a cattle auctioneer. That's what I wanted to do. So I'm a bona fide grade A country kid. Then I met Foxworthy, and when I started, you know, I went to college in Georgia, and then I met Foxworthy. So I've been around Southerners literally my whole life up to after the age of 15, at 16. And so I just picked up the accent. So it's like when I hang out with my buddies, that's how all my buddies always talk. Yeah. And you just pick it up.
You do. So it's so easy, like being in NASCAR and kind of here. You kind of end up y'all. I mean, like there's at least in the vocabulary, there are new words or additional words, you know, it's so easy to pick it up.
Oh, absolutely. So it's, you know, people don't understand that, but I mean, just look at people that, like, my wife's from Wisconsin. She talks pretty normal now because we live in Nebraska, but all the rest of her family, they're all, hey, so we were all, you know, they all sound like Dick Trickle. So, you know, so that's how I kind of am. If I spend any time in Wisconsin on vacation, I start to sound like that. So if I go back to Florida, where I live some of the time, I'm back in the accent because that's where all my friends are. So it's crazy. So I literally can talk normal, like I'm talking to you now, and then for about 5 weeks in the summer, I turn into Dick Trickle because that's who I'm around. And then in the winter time, most of the winter, when I go to Florida, I go from me to Dick Trickle, back to me to Ward Burton.
What button?
Yeah. So, you know, so that's, you know, that's, I tell everybody, I defy you to go to Florida, move to Florida and hang out with people that are completely Southern for any period of time. and you're living proof. You pick up the accent, you pick up certain words, and you can't get away from it.
Yeah. I agree. You pick things up, but what I'm hearing is like so many different, you pick up so many different words and accents and maybe even mannerisms or the way you live, who knows? And I think about the fact that you're a comedian and you have these roles, you're the cable guy, which I do want to hear, by the way, what it sounds like when you're Larry the Cable Guy versus Dan or versus any other character. I'm curious because I want people to understand when you are Larry the Cable Guy versus not. And maybe it's just in the jokes, but maybe it's in the accent. But also I'm thinking you make people feel comfortable. And so, you grew up, I mean, from what I understand, your dad wasn't always the easiest on you. And, comedy came in at a young age. And I wonder if maybe there's some like more psychological sort of perspective where you mold into your environment because it makes people feel comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Comedy gave me confidence. I never really had a lot of confidence, and comedy gave me confidence because once you got on stage and you start doing it, you're not good at first, but you stick to it. And then all of a sudden you get up and you're in control of an audience and you're making some people laugh. And all of a sudden a pretty girl comes up and starts talking to you. And then you get more and more confidence. I think that's why a lot of times when I did the character, it gave me it gave me an opportunity to kind of do something in another persona, that made me more comfortable. So when I started doing Larry the Cable Guy, it's like, I was just saying that to somebody the other day. I automatically, if I'm meeting somebody for the first time, or I'm in a group of people for the first time, I automatically resort to, and of course, though somebody will call me Larry or whatever, but it's kind of a defense mechanism. I feel more comfortable in a crowd of people going, "Hey, what's going on, y'all? Hey, did y'all ever hit up there to, oh yeah, I was up there last week. We was up there, and I just naturally talk that way because I've had so much confidence doing that it kind of just, I ease into things a lot better. Then, an hour into the conversation, I'm back to being me and just talking like me. But when I first start in certain situations, that's how I start talking. And it's subconscious. I mean, I don't even do it on purpose. It's like my buddy called me the other day, my buddy Brad Ward from Sanford, Florida. He called me where I used to live in Sanford. And, he was one of my buddies I grew up with. So he's real Southern, and so I was just talking to my wife like this, normal. We're having a conversation. Brad called. And first thing she hears me do is go, "Hey, what's up, Brad?" No, he ain't called me, but if he calls, tell him I got two of them. So just, whatever he needs to do, and I literally had this 15-minute conversation with my buddy Brad, and I hung up and my wife said, "You were in character for 15 minutes. I didn't even realize it. It's just, that's how Brad talks, and he's my friend. And that's kind of like our little group thing we got going. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. I really turn it on if it's somebody that, because I was born in Nebraska, but I grew up in the South. I grew up in Florida, which is the South, whether people want to believe it or not. And depending on what part you're in. And so all my friends were Southern, because I was a country kid. I hung out with the people that had livestock and horses and cattle. So they were all very Southern. So it's if I'm somewhere here, say if I'm somewhere just here, where I'm at in Lincoln, and somebody will come up and go, "Hey, Larry, man, we's big fans, man. We seen you down at," and they got a Southern accent. I'll go, "Hey, man, I appreciate it. Where y'all from?" And they'll tell me, "Oh yeah, we spend time down there," and it just happens. And I subconsciously do it. I don't do it just because I'm trying to fake somebody out. I do it because it's just me. That's what comes out of me. I think it makes me feel safer. It makes me feel more connected to the person. Because I'll be honest, I really didn't have a lot of confidence when I was a kid, and I built my confidence through the character Larry the Cable Guy that enabled me to be able to go on stage in front of thousands of people and tell jokes. So yeah, it's really helped me come out of my shell and be able to talk to people with confidence and
why weren't you confident? I mean, clearly you're a friendly guy, you're a funny guy, you're an empathetic, kind person, which, because you're really just mirroring people. So that's a very, that makes people feel really comfortable. So what was it about your childhood that didn't make you have confidence?
Well, no, it's just, some kids grow up and they don't think they're good at anything. You in your mind think you're good at something, but you're scared to try it for fear that you're not good at it.
What happens if you failed? Was there a punishment?
No, not at all.
If you got bad grades, did you come home and get punished for that?
I got bad grades because I was a goof off and I just never really tried. No, look, I know what you're getting at. Look, my dad was, I love my dad. My dad was my dad. I mean, I only have one dad. My dad was a preacher. He was very strict. He was strict on some things. He was not strict on other things. But yeah, he was very strict and he wasn't a very good dad. I love him. I forgive him. He's a human being. Now that I'm older and I have kids, I completely understand where he's coming from. However, he did things that I would never do that I think helped me to be a better father. In other words, get rid of the violence, that kind of stuff. So I learned, here's what I learned. Here's what you need to do as kids and as growing up. You learn from your elders. And I've always learned from my elders. I've taken wonderful things from my mom, who has experienced so many things through life at the age of 86. Especially like going through this pandemic and everybody's scared to walk outside and everybody's scared to do this. Here's a woman that lived through smallpox and measles and hiding under desks when they thought they were going to get bombed by the Russians. I mean, she was the first one to go, I don't get what everybody's so scared about. It is, you know what? You live through these things. These are things that happen. Every generation has, and I get it. So it just taught me how to be, I'm not a perfect dad, but I do my best. And I learned what we're supposed to do as we grow up is learn from mistakes from other people. So you don't do the same mistakes over again. And that's what I try to do in my life. I try to learn from how I grew up and the mistakes that my dad made. I don't want to make those mistakes. And so it made me a better father. No, a lot of people don't do that. They don't think about it. They don't learn. And that goes for everything. It goes for our government. It goes for the way people live their lives. It goes for, as you can tell right now, our government never learns from the past. They do the same things over and over and over and wonder why it's not working. It helped me in comedy later on because I was always the person that could pop out a funny joke or a one-liner when I needed it to lighten the mood up a little bit. It really taught me timing, when to throw in a joke, what kind of joke is perfect for this situation, what joke might cross the line a little bit. So I really learned a lot from that kind of stuff,
Well, you say that life, you're supposed to learn lessons and some people don't learn them. That's totally true. But I think the layer that most people don't get to, because I think it's the hardest one, is to say, I love my dad. Like as a dad now can understand him. So how did you get to that point? Because I think that's the hardest, is to actually truly get to that point of forgiveness, of love, and to be able to go, wow, maybe you can even gather that it probably came from his dad. Right. And all of a sudden now you go, I'm not going to keep this pattern going. And I love you.
Right. Well, since you asked, I'll tell you, I'm a Christian. I believe I'm not religious. I try to follow the Bible and Jesus as much as I can. We'll never do it, obviously, because we're never going to be perfect. But he taught me how to forgive. And if he wouldn't have taught me how to forgive, I would never forgive him. But Jesus forgave me. He tells us to forgive people. And so that's what you do. You forgive. And my dad wasn't perfect, but I forgive him. In the end, when you think about it, he's a human being. He had the same problems, the same struggles, the same dumb, stupid stuff that other people do. And he, so I forgive him. And it's the most freeing thing that you'll ever do in your life, to be able to get to the point to forgive somebody that has done things in your life that really kind of messed you up a little bit. But man, when I tell people, I honestly do, I love them. I forgive him. He was a human. I'm not perfect. I've done a lot of stupid stuff. I've probably, in relationships, I've probably hurt people, as everybody hurts people in relationships. And, but the best thing you can do is forgive. And it is a free moment. I couldn't do it if I wasn't a Christian, if I didn't believe in Jesus Christ. I mean, that's a guy that was hanging on a cross that did nothing, but he never asked for any money. He never begged anybody for anything. He never forced his beliefs. He never forced what he was teaching on anybody. He gave everybody free will, and they did nothing and they killed him. They killed a guy who did nothing but want to bring peace and hope to the world. And they killed him, and he looked right at him and he said, "Father, forgive them." If he can do that, so can I.
It makes me think about the way that the world is right now. And you're looking at deplatforming, cancel culture, right. Things being taken out of media and out of our reach because of certain reasons. And it's like he got taken out based on just living his life and not forcing anything, but just, preaching the truth, preaching his feelings. Yeah. And like today we're seeing this all over the place. People, right. I mean, I don't even know where you stand on this, but as a comedian, I felt like you guys are like the last ones that get to make all the jokes and say all the things. Where the hell do you land on that? Do you all of a sudden have to approach your shows differently?
Well, before I get to that, he was the truth, and he was shedding light on darkness. And people don't want to have their darkness light shined on their evil deeds. And that's what's happening today. People don't want the truth being shown on the evilness that they're doing and what they're trying to do. And so they will ban any form of truth because they don't want the truth uncovered. And that's a fact. If you are really, here's the thing. If you are really truthful, you don't want anything banned because you can defend what you're doing. If you're telling if you're telling the truth, if you're an honest person, you're telling the truth, you can defend it because it's true and it's the truth. If you're not telling the truth, they don't want to hear it. So they will do everything they can to get the truth off of there because it's shining a light on their deeds and they don't want that shine. That was the same thing. Well, that's the same thing with Christ. He was shining a light on all of their fraudulent BS, and they didn't like it. So they were just real quick. They were controlling back in then the religious leaders, the Pharisees, and they were controlling the people with religion, with their religion, and Jesus was shining a light on what they were doing, because religion's all man-made rules. Yeah. Following Christ is his rules, no man-made rules. So have you noticed with religion and with man-made rules, the goalpost always changes. You always have different targets to hit. Jesus has one target to hit, one goalpost, one target. You're never confused. There it is.
What is it?
With man, you're trying to reach all kinds of these. Oh, make sure you do this. You got to do this, or you're not gonna and make sure that your good deeds outdo your bad deeds. That is completely not anything that Jesus talked about at all.
What's that one truth? What's that one truth that you anchor with?
I am the way, the truth, and the light. No man cometh to the Father but through me. And they didn't like that. And that's what he said. As far as comedy goes, with the times that we're living in today, it is tough. And, it's funny that Bill Maher, I'm one of those comics that I like all comedy. Comedy's hard. And even though a comic is doing things that I don't agree with or things that I would never do or say, they have every right to do it and try to find their own following. It's called capitalism. It's called doing what you do and having an audience find you and like you. If you don't like the comedian, if you think he's doing this or he's hateful, then don't go see him. Don't go see him. He's out of your life. Don't try to ban him from being able to do what he does. I mean, it's ridiculous. I feel bad for the comics coming up today because they have this whole different standard, and they have people that are running the entertainment business where if they don't like what you say, you're out of here. If they don't like what you do, then you're not going to get a break. So you better toe the line. You better do jokes that we find acceptable, or you're not going to be able to be a comedian. Now, the comics that won't have a problem with that are the ones that are already established, the ones that already have a built-in following where their audience tells those people to go suck it. I feel bad for the up-and-coming comics because they're going to have a hard time with that. But there are those of us still out there that do comedy the way comedy was intended to be. God gave everybody a different sense of humor. We all have certain senses of humor. It's a gift. Why were we created with a sense of humor and a different type of sense of humor? Because when we were created, God knew what our personalities were going to be like, what we were going to be like, what we think is funny to one person isn't funny to another person. What one person thinks is funny, another person doesn't think is funny. I don't know how many times I have been around people that have kids that have that are crippled or whatever, or someone and their dad or somebody will make he went down, and they'll crack a joke about it. And you're thinking, man, why would you crack a joke about it? Why? Because that's the way he deals with it. That's the way he can get through the day. Yeah. That's his sense of humor.
Yeah.
He was created with that sense of humor because he was going to experience situations where he would need that sense of humor. That's why we all have a different sense of humor to deal with certain things. I have a friend who got cancer, and he ended up having have a ball cut off. And he's like, all the jokes you can possibly make about this would be wonderful. So it's like, let's go have a ball, but just one, he wanted them all. That was just his sense of humor. And then there's somebody else, like you said, who has something happen, and it's just taboo. We don't talk about it. And, there's enough. If you're yourself, there's enough people. Number one, I think that resonates with people when you're just kind of being yourself, whatever that is. But there's plenty of people out there in the world. There's like 8 billion people, or I'm trying to think what I think Biden said there was 350 million people in the country, but there's like 320, right? So, there's 320 million people just in this country. So, there's enough people that will pay attention to what you're doing, and your sense of humor will resonate with, even if it resonates with, a couple percent. That's a lot of people. Absolutely. I mean, and it's good. Laughter is good. And whether you like that person laughing at something, that's not you to decide. Maybe that's how he's dealing with something. You don't know. So mind your own business.
That's right.
It's like mind your own business.
Yeah. Well, speaking of comedy changing, I'm fascinated with your comedy before you were married to after you were married, and then with kids, and the fact that you would just like make stuff up before you were married? Because nobody was going to know, right? You can make up a
Right.
joke about a girl and it won't matter. Like,
Right.
you clearly can't because you're married now.
In my act, I had like 90 ex-wives.
Well, first off, have you ever made a joke about me?
Have I made a joke about Danica Patrick? You know what? I think I did. I think, what did I? Yeah, I said that Danica Patrick, I go, holy smokes, she's good. I said, she's good look. And now all the NASCAR drivers are going to have windshield wipers on the inside of the car. and then what was in this? I think another one was about pole setter, but I can't remember how it went.
That's a good one. On the pole. Danica's on the pole again.
Yeah, no, I never did that one. It was something about pole setter, but it was for, I can't remember what it was for. I can't remember. It was so long ago.
Oh,
but I think I only did 2 or 3 of them. I'll tell you a funny story though. Remember when we went down to, you and I were like, you were the Grand Marshal and I was also doing something. We were the 2 big guests at the big race there in Louisiana, I think it was. Or no, it was at the football game. Yeah.
It was like at a race I probably wouldn't have been able to, but
it was at a bowl game. That's
right. Was it in Mobile, Alabama?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Maybe?
And it was funny because you and I were kind of hanging out, and then you went up, did your deal. And you said a couple of jokes about me. And then I went up and did my deal, did a couple of Danica Patrick jokes. I think one of them might've been windshield wipers on the inside of the car. And anyway, and then they said something, interviewed me, but we both said something nice about each other. And I just thought this was so funny. I was cleaning out my mail the other day, and I have stuff all the way back from 2012. So I'm just getting rid of stuff. And I come across an article from that thing, and it was some gossip column in Hollywood. And it said, could there be a new romance in the making? And it said the chemistry between Danica Patrick and Larry the Cable Guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember this article. I showed my wife, and we just got to laughing about it. It was so hilarious.
That's amazing. I'm sure your wife has a good sense of humor herself.
Oh, she's
a comedian. But I'm so like, so what would be an example? Like, was there some certain jokes before you were married that would just like bring the house down that were total lies?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Or maybe based on truth, maybe.
Maybe just a small nugget of truth, a small nugget. But I would go, yeah, these are so far back. I'm trying to remember. I've had like.
Hang on, are you Larry? Are you Larry in these jokes?
Oh yeah, if I can remember them, I'll be there. I'm trying to think if I can remember from way back then. Now you're talking about my first album that literally was from like 1999 or 2000. I'm trying to remember some of those jokes about, I dated this gal. She had one boob bigger than the other boob. We got in a wet t-shirt contest. She took third place on that damn thing, and I told her. There's all kind. I can't remember that far back. What was one? My sister-in-law. My sister-in-law got married last week, and now she's pregnant. She didn't even tell her husband. That she was pregnant because he'd kind of gotten used to her throwing up after they had sex now, so they can't. But everything. I made up all kinds of. I made up brothers. I made up sisters. See, that was the cool thing about back then. It was so free. I mean, I could make up family members and all that stuff. And I did have a little dilemma because when I got married, I thought, oh man, I don't want to be I'm out with this girl last night, or I was up at the strip club last week, or I was, because that was like, well, even if it's made up, I don't want to, because I'm married now. So I don't want people to go
respectful. And we've already established from the very beginning that you're a very kind guy and that you like people to feel comfortable. So the last thing you want to do is make your wife feel like she's not important or not.
Oh my gosh. I literally had to get rid of anything like that. I did ex-girlfriend jokes. I didn't do ex-wife jokes anymore because everybody knew this was my first wife in real life. And that was the first time, though, Danica, that was really weird for me, because that was the first time that the character blended in with me, with my real life. Before, everything was fake. It was all made up. It was Larry the Cable Guy. I was writing for this whole persona. Now the persona has just dipped into reality.
Which is almost, in a way, that's like, yes, there's some like artistic freedom with being able to make up these stories, but
Right.
it's like self-deprecating humor. It's so funny. So now you're really telling the truth, kind of, when you're spinning it. So what is something like, what's a joke that you told afterwards that was like right on the limit of truth and, I don't know, something about you, something your wife does or you do, or something like that, where you're like, man, this one hits, but it's pushing it.
Oh my gosh.
Something about, sex after marriage or blowjobs, anything like that? No,
you know what? I didn't.
You stay away from that?
I cut that stuff out. I didn't want to disrespect my wife.
Wow, you're a good person.
I'm not a good person. I cut it out. There might have been one or two, but honestly, Danica, if I could remember, I would. We're talking, I do all one-liners. So, I mean, in a full 70-minute show, I have 280 something punchlines, jokes, and I've had 7 albums. So that's, 2,500 jokes. So I really can't remember. It's the current stuff I can remember that I'm doing now. But I stayed away from anything that I thought, well, that's kind of mean. I don't want to do that. Like I had one that I didn't do that I thought was funny, but it was like, and it was, we were going to film our baby's first birth. When my baby was first born, we was going to film the birth, but I couldn't get Jessica Simpson to play the part of my wife. So we ended up not doing that. And then I thought, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute, my wife's just as hot as Jessica Simpson. So why would I use, I mean, seriously. So then to me, it wasn't as funny. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Now I'm making my wife sound like a dog. She's beautiful. Why would I?
Yeah.
So it was really, that was the one hard thing about my act, because I tried to separate it from me because I'm so different in ways. I'm not different in the fact that both the character is very country, very rural, so am I. So that's the same kind of thing. Some people, when they do a character, they do the opposite of that, the complete opposite.
Right.
I didn't do the complete opposite. I did basically people that I grew up with and friends that I knew is basically what I did. So, which were pretty much lived like I did, grew up like I did, but said things differently than I would say them. And I would I would have more tact than they would. But that's when everything started to bleed together. And then when I had kids, it even bled even more together. And that's when critics and everybody started saying that I became this character, that every time you see me, I'm Larry the Cable Guy, which is not true. Because every time critics or anybody would see me, I was working. I was either doing cars, or I was doing a show, or I was working. Obviously, I was going to be in character. I'm working. I'm doing what I do. Mm-hmm. But out on the streets, it was just always me. It was just the same kind of, whatever.
I think that's a thing with comedians. Like I remember, like even David Letterman, he owned the team that I drove for. Him and Bobby Rahal owned the first IndyCar team I drove for. And, there was this whole like expectation level going out in public that they knew, which is like, I'm supposed to be funny. I'm supposed to do these things. And I always think, especially for comedians, how does that feel? And, you are a comedian because I'm sure it's in there, but is is that you're on pressure. Like for me, I'm like, I got in public and you're supposed to be friendly and nice and you do all the things, but I think it's like a more minimal expectation level, like just be a decent human, where with a role like that, with a job like that, people expect you to just floor them when you walk by and say something.
Well, that's the thing. And that's where I say that, where my character comes in handy, because like I said, Larry, the cable guy that I created, I'm funny. He's funny too. I wrote for him to be, I created him to be funny as well, but he's a little more daring than I am. So that's where that all comes in handy, because you're a comedian. People do expect you to be, oh man, he's funny, and so that's when, boom, it's not, I'll let that be me, myself. I'm just myself, but they'll come up and so boom, right away, I'll go, hey, what's going on there with your, and then I'll dip down into something. And it doesn't even have to be a lot. All it has to be, because I know they like the movie Cars and not like that kind of stuff. So, hey, there's some people will say, hey, what's up, Dan? Well, the ones that'll say my real name, I'll like, hey, what's going on? And the other ones will go, hey, Mater, I get a lot of that. Hey, Mater, what's going on, Mater? And I'll go, oh, I'll tell you what. It's hotter, whatever, blah, 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 It's so cold outside today and the ice cream machine at McDonald's was working. I'll tell you what, and then I'll dip down and do that. They laugh, they go on their way. That's why sometimes I always get frustrated. I mean, they can do what they want, but comics that have been around a while that have a certain catchphrase or a certain thing that they did in a movie, they don't like to do it anymore because they feel like I don't want to, you know what I mean? It's like Jimmy Walker hated saying dynamite. I get it. I totally get it.
Foxworthy is sick of saying you might be a redneck. Yeah.
You might be a redneck.
Are you sick of saying get her done?
But it's just like Jeff does the same thing, though. It doesn't hurt to give a real quick one, laugh, and move on. They're happy. You're happy. You made somebody happy. So that's what I do. Is it sometimes a pain in the neck? Absolutely. But you know what? Hey, get her done. And they go on their way, and then you weren't a jerk. And plus, I like people. I honestly like people. I enjoy people. Mm-hmm. I like making them happy. And so I don't mind doing things like that. But I definitely dip down into the character a lot when somebody expects me to be funny, because that's what I do. That's funny. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. Then when I get to know them, I can be myself and be funny, but when I first meet somebody I'm in a crowd and they expect it to be funny, my defense mechanism is always, my default is always, hey, you're not, that's always my default, because it breaks the ice, makes everybody feel comfortable. Yeah. And that's my default there.
What's true for me right now is that, we've seen each other a few different times and chatted and whatever, but this is more of a real conversation than we've ever had. And you're I like Dan. I like you're smart. You've thought about things. You're compassionate. You're also convicted. Like, I feel like you have beliefs that are strong in all different ways, not just religious, but other ways too. And so I'm really glad that this conversation is led so strongly with Dan. And, because I really like Dan. I mean, yes, Larry makes people laugh and these other roles make people laugh, but, it's magic. For comedians, you can get people to fall in love with you with the role, but it's really like the deep, true love is comes through when you show who you really are. And so I'm glad you've been so open about so many things.
You know what, Dan? I'm always open. I'm always open. I'm always honest. There's no need to lie to anybody. And when you said that, it's funny. It reminds me of another person that said that to me was John Lasseter from Pixar. When people ask me, John Lasseter said to me that he loved it that I voiced Mater and he got to hang around me, because he said, not only does he said the same thing. He goes, man, I love Larry the Cable Guy. It's so funny. He goes, but I really like hanging out with Dan. I really like Dan. And he said, the closest you'll get to me and with is Mater, because Mater is the Larry voice, but Mater is my personality, is my character. I talk like Larry the Cable Guy from Mater, but when I came up with the inflections and the hey Miss Sally, hey, like when I came up with all of the heart stuff, that was basically, I was just throwing me into it, just putting me into the character. But I used the Larry accent. But that's why John Lasseter, that's what he loved about it. He said, man, I see both of you in Mater after hanging out with you. I see both of you. I see the character and I see Dan in Mater. But it's just funny you say that because he said the same thing. And but you know, hey, I'm like everybody else. I'm not perfect. I do my best. I try to be kind to everybody. Sometimes you know how it is. Sometimes you just blow a top, and you got those days where you lose your self-control and you just got to be alone. And I have very few of those days. But everybody does have those days. Obviously, I'm not perfect. And let me say this as well to you. And this isn't a butt kissing session for either one of us, but I have to say this for you. Because you said it's just hard when you go out in public and you have to do this and you have to do that. And I get it, man. I get it. Sometimes there's nothing worse than people. Then you know what I mean? If I could, I would never leave the house just to avoid people. Sometimes you get in that mood. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you, we went down to a race. I've been to a ton of races. I've been to Grand Marshal a bunch of times. But the last few times I've taken my kids because they're old enough to enjoy it. But we were at that race, and we were at the race in Kansas City. And man, you were so kind to my kids. My daughter has been a Danica Patrick fan ever since that day in Kansas City, because you were so nice to them, and they were just really enamored at how nice you were. So they both said when they left, their favorites were Danica Patrick and Ryan Newman, because they were so nice to
that's so sweet. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, so you do a really good job at that.
Thanks.
And I know a lot of times.
What was taking a little extra time with the kids? Because they can't reason. Like an adult can reason and go, you're working, or you probably have somewhere to go. But a kid doesn't really know. You know, a kid, the kid just goes, oh, my favorite person just walked by and didn't say anything to me or ignored me, or, they weren't very nice, and that sticks. Right. And you also, they're so impressionable. I mean, the molding of a child, I mean, it's happening most aggressively until about the age of about 6 to 8. And so to have an effect on a kid like that is a really cool thing. And, you were talking about a lot about kids, and we're talking about Pixar and Cars. And I found it amazing to hear just how impressionable, how meaningful it was for you to be a part of Pixar versus, let's say, the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, which that's where, I mean, that like puts you on the map. I mean, 6 years of touring with, a lineup of amazing comedians. I mean, it made all, I mean, I remember watching it as a kid, it was a huge deal, but Pixar is what hits home. And I'm wondering why that is.
Oh man, I'm so old. You were a kid watching this.
I hear that about me too. So, hey, people are like, even I feel like, oh my God, my boyfriend even said, he's like, when I met you, I thought you were going to be a lot older. Like I didn't realize you were, in your later 30s. Cause he remember being in high school and you were a big deal. And I'm like, oh my God.
See, that's awesome that he would say that. See, I get stuff like, wow, he's still alive. That's a whole different range.
Hey man, we're just climbing the ladder.
Oh my gosh. Now, what was your question? I forgot.
It was just about Pixar. I just, I'm wondering like, what makes it hit home in your heart so much that is the thing that is the most, seemingly from what I have heard, really one of the most meaningful things that you've done.
Well, that's really meaningful because first of all, it's an organization and they make movies that every huge A-list actor wants to do. They all want to do it for their kids or their grandkids, or they all want to do a Pixar movie. So the fact I not only got picked to do a character in one, but it turned into 3 and a theme park. I mean, it's really a dream come true. I liked it because I had kids, and I was able to bring in a whole nother group of people. That's why my act started to change, because I had kids. Once you have kids, you start to think differently. You have different priorities. It's not about you anymore. It's about your kids, and you want your kids to grow up good. You want them to give them a good foundation. You want them to see their dad in some things that are really cool so that's when I just started writing things different, keeping the same thing. I did the character's the character. You can't flip, but writing jokes that I'm more comfortable with kids. And since Pixar came along, that was perfect, because I'd already started to adjust my act and to try to change everything. And then here came Pixar. But I think the cool thing about it was John hired me because of the voice. He loved the voice. The voice was his tow truck. And I had worked so hard on developing this and marketing myself and doing these radio stations for no pay, a lot of them, for years. And just in the back of my mind wondering, at some point, this is going to have to lead to something, because it's getting more and more popular. It already led to the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. So, let's see what else happens. And by gosh, I would have never dreamed when I first did that voice on stage, when in probably in the late 80s, never would I have dreamed that was the start of a Pixar character. I would have never dreamed. And it's just really cool to see the development from the very first time I went on stage. That I'm a big rodeo fan. So I used to watch
rodeo.
Yeah, I used to watch Mesquite Championship Rodeo with Donnie Gay on Sunday nights. And I went on stage with a cowboy hat one time, because I used to do some characters. I just put a hat on. And for 3 minutes, I went, well, we rode that bull yesterday. He took us up to pay winded. I took a shot in the shorts, but we went up. That's what it started with. Got an okay laugh. The next day I went up, and I did it as a cable installer, because I literally had a cable installer come to our house in Florida. And he was just kind of a bumbling guy that thought he had the wrong house, but he wasn't sure. And, because the number's on the house, and so I just went on stage for the first time, and I went, hey, do you order cable? Well, somebody's ordered something there, because we've been driving around this neighborhood, 745. Yeah, well, this is the house. And I literally did like a 3-minute bit that got pretty good. But I would have never dreamed in a million years that night that would have developed into the character Mater. And so
does this cable guy know who he is?
I have no idea. He's probably dead now. He was probably 40 years ago, or however long it was. But so it's just, that's why it was really cool. It was just a culmination of something that I created in my head that just boom. And that's just a cool feeling,
To go backwards in time then to the in-between from the birth of, this voice and doing stuff on the radio. And then all of a sudden, you're the voice of, this huge character in Cars, is the Blue Comedy Tour and Blue Collar Comedy Tour. What was that like? I mean, what is it like to have a room full of comedians? Like, I'm sure you guys are, I think from my experience, sometimes people don't realize that you might not interact that much
Right.
In certain environments, like there'd be times I go to the racetrack and, there's certain drivers that you literally would only see in their car on the track, and you'd actually never see them in passing on other points, and maybe during driver intros or something like that. But just for a split second, you don't hang out with them. You don't
But people
see them. So what was it really like? Like, were you guys ever hanging out, or was there separation? I know Foxworthy's flying in on his jet and, doing the thing, but was there real camaraderie? Was there not? How was it really?
Well, first of all, the funny thing about the progression of Blue Collar Comedy Tour was hilarious because Jeff flew in on the jet. We all flew in on Delta. And then by the time the third one was over, we left to go home. There was 4 jets lined up.
Because jets are the best. I know. I'm sure I sound like such a dick right now, but they really are.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you're blessed enough to do it. But here's the thing about it. What people don't get about it. You don't take a jet unless there's money on the other end. You budget it out that when you want to take family trips, you can take X amount and take the jet. You don't want to do it if there's not money on the other end. But here's the thing about the jet. People go, these blue collar guys flying around. Well, you know what? It's pretty hard to get from Michigan to St. Joe to Texas to Florida in 4 days on commercial airlines. You can't do it. And you work so much, you have to find a way to get somewhere quick so you can be with your family. That's what it was all about. Believe me, if I could have saved money getting somewhere quick, a lot cheaper, I'd have done it. But you can't do it and be an entertainer and do 280 days on the road and still spend time with your family. So I was one of the things was I was fortunate, though. A lot of those times I had the family truckster. We toured in a tour bus together. So on those blue collar dates where we could get there in 8 to 10 hours on a tour bus, we would just take the bus out and I'd be with my wife and my kids. And it was awesome. But as far as the thing goes, you know what? Jeff and I have been friends since 1986. He's like my adopted brother. I love him with all my heart. I very infrequently ran into Ron White. I knew Ron. I met him a couple of times. He was awesome. He was my friend. I mean, he was a nice guy, funny, but I'd only seen him a couple of times. I didn't know Bill Engvall for squat. Never worked with him, didn't know him. I just knew he was on there. So when I joined the tour, that was the first time I was introduced to those two guys. But as we progressed and toured together and shows together, we were a tight-knit group. We all were very close to one another. We had regular little brother fights like you would normally have, little snippets here and snippets there and get mad here at something. But in the end, at the end of the night, it was all good. We would never let that go into the next day because not only did we have something good going, we didn't want to ruin it, but we were truly friends and we did truly care about each other. And we knew that we never got jealous of the other one's successes because we knew the minute one person got something good happen to them, it was going to happen to us. Did we want it to happen to us first? Well, yeah, maybe we're like, oh man, I hope I get that. So, well, you know what? Everything good that happens to one of us is gonna happen to all of us. So it was. We always rooted each other on. It was great. The camaraderie, the backstage. We didn't. Sometimes, some weekends, we would hang out all the time. We would go to breakfast. We would, and then if it was just a one night a week, we would all fly in separate. We'd do our show, hang out for that hour backstage, and the meet and greet, go home. So yeah, it's just like your NASCAR guys, except we did hang everybody about half the time that night. We never toured together on buses. We did a thing where it showed us all on a bus together. We never did that. But as far as that goes, those were some of the greatest times of our lives. People always say, will there ever be a reunion of the Blue Collar Comedy Tour? And I got to be honest, it's really hard to replicate something that was so special because you don't want people going, oh man, it was really funny, but man, I'll tell you what, back in the day, those guys, we don't want to back in the day. You know, you can't, we're never going to top that. Will you see us all four together one time when we're in our 70s in Vegas, just for a fun thing to do? Maybe, maybe not. But as far as a big tour again with us, it's not going to happen.
For somebody like you who's established and had plenty of success and sells lots of stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, you sell, okay, hang on, I look. You sell knives, you sell camo head covers, you sell mixes, like cake like batter mixes for like cornbread and breading chicken and stuff.
That'll make your toilet take a knee.
Hang on, and you sell underwear.
Absolutely.
Is there a line that you've drawn in the sand for like, I'm not going to sell that?
Well, no, because nobody sells brown colored underwear. So it was a perfect. I mean, I sell only products that people need and should have. Here's why I do the products. I have a foundation, the Get It Done Foundation. We do a golf tournament to help raise money for the foundation, but I thought it'd be cool. What else can we do? What other kind of money can we raise? So in the first Cars movie, I sat by Paul Newman. And Paul Newman, believe it or not, people wouldn't, it's always funny who you see who's a fan and who you think would hear you or know your. Paul Newman, man, quoted a couple of my jokes and was a fan. Said he thought I was funny, loved my one-liners, which I was like, holy mackerel. And so I picked his brain. I told him what I was doing. And I picked his brain that night. We were eating at a steakhouse, all the Pixar people, for the first movie in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were about to have the thing. And I told him I wanted to be the redneck Paul Newman. Does he have any tips? And he gave me awesome tips on how to get food stuff out, what he did to get food stuff out, how to work the internet, and that's what we did. So all my products all my profits. Of course, people that make it, they got to get paid, but everything I make off of the food products and knives, it all goes to the Get It Done Foundation.
That's me.
And yeah, and so that's why we did that, just to make some extra money for the Get It Done Foundation. I do have a funny story about my food though. Right when we first started that stupid pandemic thing, when they didn't let anybody do anything for 2 weeks, which by the way has turned out to be a disaster. Somebody sent me a picture of 3 boxes of Larry the Cable Guy hamburger helper on the show. That was it. It was a grocery store, completely empty on one whole side, but there were 3 boxes. And so I retweeted it and I said, when you're in the middle of the pandemic and the only food left are 3 boxes of Larry the Cable Guy hamburger helper, it might be time to retool.
Well, I know. Actually, the one I forgot was your Bloody Larry mix. I forgot that because that's what we talked about when you interviewed me for your show. Is we talked about my wine and that you make Bloody Larry mix. That right. One that sold out, I'm sure, because drinking during the pandemic, especially early on, was prevalent.
Right, and just to show the difference between you and me, you're like, I know you love wine. You're a wine girl, and you're selling wine. I'm doing Bloody Larry
in underwear. Hamburger helper. God. Oh my God. Well,
the Bloody Larry mix, by the way, is fantastic. That stuff that is really good stuff, and it's doing really well. So that's
awesome. Congrats. It's hard to do, no matter what you're trying to sell. The market is saturated everywhere, and there's so many ways to reach people about what you're doing that even that's saturated. So that's super
you're in the real tough market because there's a lot of people doing wine, and there's not a lot of people doing Bloody Mary mixes, but there's a lot of people doing wine. And your wine's doing very well, correct?
It is. It's good. And we just launched a rosé last year. It's called Danica Rosé. People thought it was the first wine I did because Somnium, which is the Napa Valley wine, the Cab and Rosé and Sauv Blanc, they didn't even really know about that because it didn't have my name on it. So, I mean, I feel like I got in the wine game. In like 2009. I bought the properties. So I feel like I was ahead of the curve, but anyway.
That's how big a boxes can you get?
12 is a case. How big? You should have a Bloody Larry wine party.
Does it come in the box, the 12-ounce boxes? No, you've seen wine in a box, right?
Oh, that kind. Yeah, right over my head. Yes, I have. I'm sure I've drank it before, and then I don't remember.
The only wine joke I ever wrote was at Valentine's Day is all about the women. It's all about their special day. So be courteous, and if you have to fart, make sure you time it with the wine cork. And then I said, I bet we went through 8 bottles of wine. That's how classy I am, Danica.
Oh my God, that's so fantastic. Well, Larry, you're a wonderful. Sorry, Larry, Dan. Now that we're real friends, it's been a pleasure.
Was nice. Thank you. This was nice because I mean we run into each other all the time.
I know.
Never got to talk to you, so this is great.
I know. Well, next time I see you, I'm going to say, "Hey, Dan," and then we'll pick up where we left off. In the meantime, maybe I'll come see you on your tour. I would love to come see you perform.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome. Just you can always check my LarryTheCableGuy.com, my Twitter, all my social media. I'll tell you where I'm at. And if you say, "Hey, Dan," when we're in public, you say, "Dan," I'll turn around and go, "Hey, what's going on, man? It's good to talk to you. I ain't never seen you." I'll go right into the accent.
Well, if I see you at a show, probably. But if I see you at Starbucks or something else, maybe not.
No, it'd be completely normal. Trust me.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dan. And everybody can come watch you perform and play all your roles that people love.
That's awesome. Hey, Danica, thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And good luck to you and all you're doing. Can I do one of these before I leave?
Sure.
Get her done. You got to sign off with a get her done, I guess, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.